Hi and welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. And I'm really excited about today's Thriver TV episode because this is the first one back for 2017. And because this is a one universal year and it's a time of new beginnings and power, just a little off topic, but I thought I would wear a power lipstick. And my gorgeous, amazing, glamorous, beautiful girlfriend, Simone Waddell, is always at me and she says, own that lipstick, wear that color, girl, because it's a Thriver thing to do, and she does it. And I got the inspiration today, Simone, especially because I was in Pandora, birthday shopping for another girlfriend. And just another thing, a little bit off topic, Pandora is an amazing marketing thing because every time you get a charm for your girlfriend, you have to get one for you because, you know, you're soul sisters and you're like these twin souls on a journey and you love doing it. But then what happens is you just, you know, the charm thing gets crazy. It's just well, anyway, I was in Pandora and because I spent enough, I was given this little baby. And Simone, I know you've got lipsticks from all over the world. I got to see heaps of them in Sydney and it just blows my mind. But have you got anything like this little baby? And I had no idea it had this, right? And tonight I'm putting on my lipstick for Thriver TV and I'm like, holy crap, what is that? I thought it was like Harry coming through the bathroom at me like he did in another episode, but it wasn't, it was this. But it's got me really stumped because I don't get it. Like if you're in the dark and it's dark enough that you can't see yourself doing your lipstick and you have to use this, well, how is anybody else going to see your lipstick either? But anyway, so that's enough about lipstick. And on to Thriver TV. And this episode is really important and it's Can a Narcissist Be Cured? And people do ask this all the time. Over the last 10 years, I have heard this asked so many times and people say, surely everybody can change and heal. How can someone be doomed to never get better? Surely they're worth a chance. And why, as a society, are we turning our back on narcissists? And I know that many of us who've healed from narcissistic abuse and we've come out the other side, we do have a compassion for narcissists. You know, I had a conversation on Facebook with the Thriver community about this topic, and as one lady said, and I'll just tell you what she said, I'll just have, because I've taken a note of it, I'm going to need my glasses for this. What she said is, I do have compassion for someone who will live out their existence and never know or experience what true love really is. And I think it's so sad and hard to comprehend that another person is incapable of true emotion and that everything they do is an act or an attempt to fit in. And others also would like to believe that a narcissist could heal. And this is what another lady wrote in the conversation on Facebook. She said, well, I've heard you say that the only difference between a narcissist and a codependent is awareness. I think it would stand to reason that a narcissist can be cured as they become more and more aware of themselves and work to heal those inner wounds. However, I don't have any idea how common it is to be cured of narcissism. It seems like it would take a lot of mental strength and responsibility. For many of us, even before we understood the dynamics of codependency and narcissism, of course we wanted to believe with all of our hearts that a narcissist could heal. And this was something, once upon a time, I agonized over a great deal myself. Because with the first narcissistic abuse experience, I was convinced that I still loved him. And I was convinced that we were truly meant to be together. And I wanted to believe that he really loved me and that his exclamations of wanting to save our relationship were genuine. So I clung to the idea, like so many of us, that he would be a narcissist who could heal. And I spent years hanging on to that hope because I believed that love conquers all. But this I know now to be true. a different truth, as was so eloquently put by another Facebook member. And this is what she said. I think the real question to the inquirer is, why do you need the narcissist to be cured? What do you get if the narcissist is cured? Personally, I think that when somebody asks themselves this question, they're still in the very beginning stages of recovery. If you work on yourself, after a time, the question of whether the narc can be cured sort of becomes irrelevant. And it was very, very true that with narcissist number one, I was totally at the beginning of my journey. I'd not turned inwards or self-partnered to meet or heal my inner wounds. And I was still so hooked onto the belief that he had to provide my life for me, my levels of love, approval, survival, and security, because as a codependent, I never learned how to genuinely generate that for myself. So it stood to reason that I literally did feel like my life depended on him healing. And as a result, I was incredibly susceptible to breaking no contact or being hoovered by him, believing his promises to get well, which never amounted to anything, over and over again. And with narcissist number two, I'd already done a huge amount of inner shifting on my trauma programs, and I had a much more solid and healed inner identity. And what that meant is I was a more whole source of love, approval, security, and survival to myself. And even though he'd come into my life to trigger and bring forth into my consciousness some unconscious parts that still required healing, I was much more able to detach, cut off from broken promises this time, and focus on healing what was necessary within myself. Okay, so let's get into the real juice of this conversation, and this question on Facebook is a wonderful way to do that. Let's have a look at this question. I really like this question. It's really quite amazing. As I'm doing so much hard work on myself and finally both believe and feel that I'm not damaged beyond repair, thank you, Mel, as a codependent anymore, and I would love to really understand the differences why my severe traumas and beliefs and survival programs, etc., are curable, but not the narcissists. Much love to you, and I'm so looking forward to this Thriver episode. And it's such a great question. Okay, so the answer to this is really big. And within the answer lies so much liberation for us. And even though it's devastating at first to think that someone that we'd like to have healthily in our life and love and be loved by can't heal, that truth does set us free, and it reminds us what is really necessary if we're going to take on the life skill of loving ourselves and being the steward and guardian of our own healthy and happy life. So the answer is two things. There are two criteria necessary that any person who's been with a narcissist can adopt that a narcissist doesn't. And the first one is the willingness to heal and change, and the second is the ability to meet and be with the inner wounds. And this is what some Thriver members reported about these 2 points on Facebook. And I'll read these out to you. Okay, so the first one is, my personal opinion is no, because they have no awareness that there is anything to heal due to the separation from their true self. The next one is no, because a cure would involve self-realization, which they seem incapable of. The next one, the crux is the N has to see what is going on and want to get help. As Thrivers, we deal with our ego blocks and can get overwhelmed. It is that much more intense for an N, because they likely have had many more years of trauma, and since they have no real self, all they cling to is that ego. The N has to actually see what they are doing as harmful and want to get help. And the next one, Narcissists are wholly unable and unwilling to examine or acknowledge their own flaws because it challenges the false self they fight to maintain. And the next, and the last, the first step in changing a problem is admitting you have one. They never can get to step one. It's always somebody else's problem or fault. So my answer is no, they will never change. The thought of them being able to change is what kept me sucked into the relationship for so long. So I just want to add here that there have been many people over the years, myself included, who've experienced narcissists coming forth with total declarations of doing whatever it would take to save the relationship, including going to therapy. So myself and many people initially believed this person can't be a narcissist, or if they are, they're certainly not narcissistic personality disordered. They must just have some narcissistic traits. And yes, that would be true for people with just narcissistic traits. They could take responsibility for their behaviours, face the inner traumas responsible for them, and heal. Yet with these people I've had reported to me, and those I experienced personally, who did not heal and change after the admissions of being wrong and even after getting therapy, the initial humbleness did not hold for long, and the hairline trigger came straight back up again if you tried to discuss the issues or get any type of assurance or accountability about the issues. And the truth is, it is impossible in the moment to know whether the narcissist is acting out as a scared, fractured inner child terrified of losing connection, who actually believes that he or she wants to change, or whether it is simply a consummate act to feign an apology to manipulate you into staying. Whichever one of the two, this truth is the real deal. It's all about narcissistic supply. It's not about loving and cherishing you and being a healthy team member or supporting your heart, your soul, or your missions, which is what as healthy people we generate with other truly loving people in our life. Rather, it is all about the narcissist being able to get the attention from you that allows the narcissist to know that he or she exists and is significant. Nothing more. Another way to know you're dealing with somebody who is a narcissist after they apologize is the turning of the tables of the focus on things being your fault all over again and the associated tit-for-tat behavior. But like, what about all the stuff you do or you did? That stuff's never far behind. Another sinister twist happens. The narcissist's ego starts intensely resenting the prior humbleness, the vulnerability that he or she had to adopt, and the abuse escalates as his or her ego needs to punish you for making that happen. And this is why after breakups and reuniting with narcissists, when you take them back, the cycles of violence intense in frequency and ferocity. So that is definitely not someone who is fully dedicated and able to meet their inner woundedness, which was responsible for their behaviour. Which is what people who have been unconscious and are working towards their consciousness do. These are people who want to change. Narcissists don't. And the following is a huge wake-up call out of the trance for all of us, really for all of humanity that has been traumatized. And it's this: the truth is nobody, narcissist or non-narcissist, stops acting out severely inappropriate or unhealthy behavior simply because they said they realized and would not do that anymore. It takes an enormous effort of self-realization, which is the meeting of internal woundedness directly and the taking responsibility to heal by letting go of these wounds and replacing them with love, healing and awareness in order to shift into a better human being. So let's go directly now to the two reasons why we can heal from narcissistic abuse, but narcissists don't heal from narcissism. So the first one was the willingness to heal and change, and the second, the ability to meet and be with the inner wounds. Why doesn't a narcissist want to heal and change? Why doesn't a narcissist have the ability to meet and be with the inner wounds? The reason is because the narcissist carries enormous inner wounding, created from the trauma of his or her childhood and or passed on epigenetically from his or her forebears. And no matter what the narcissist tries to blame you with, such as, I act like this because of you, it's not the truth. These internal traumas existed long before you came on the scene. You just happened to trigger them off. And these wounds are so significant that the narcissist submerged, killed off his or her true self and created a false self, a fictitious character in its place to try to escape the wounds. The only problem with this strategy is the internal wounds do not go away. They remained. And the more disowned they were, the bigger they got, just like an untreated cancer that becomes more and more invasive and malignant. The narcissist has disowned these wounds but can never divorce these wounds. The narcissist is eternally tied to them. To try to compensate, the narcissist needs to create a bigger and bigger false self, which is grandiose, perfect in every way, and more special than other people. The false self, however, is pathological. It isn't solid, it's insecure. It deeply takes offense and childishly personalizes any slights. It is an ineffective barrier to internal self-demonizing thoughts and feelings. It needs to grab energy and attention outside of itself to try to avoid the internal emotional agony. The last thing a narcissist wants to do is relinquish the buffers of these huge defenses that have been erected, which is his or her ego. The ego has taken on a life of itself, and being vulnerable and meeting inner woundedness, which means getting real in order to heal, is hardly an option. To the runaway, I've taken over the show ego, this spells annihilation. Because the ego, the false self, cannot feed off pain and fear when true self-healing occurs. The ego cannot reside in an inner landscape of love, peace, and harmony. It needs to feel separated and in conflict to activate the need to control and manipulate and to get the upper hand. The ego is a survival, it's me against the world mechanism. To lay this down means death for the ego, and that is the only entity at the helm for the narcissist. He or she feels an impending doom to even contemplate it, meeting the inner wounds. And the ego will rear up and viciously defend that possibility, attacking anything and anyone that threatens to bring that on. Because the most terrifying feeling to a narcissist is vulnerability. The fear of feeling the possible emotional annihilation that caused him or her to kill off the true self in the first place. So when dealing with a narcissist, even after the proclamations of getting therapy and never doing that to you again, the promises to not turn on you, hurt you, cheat on you, smear you, or threaten you with breakups or any other weak point which the narcissist uses cruelly against you, all go completely out the window. It's like you never received those words or promises. And to add insult to injury, somehow it's all become your fault again. In accepting the truth that narcissists don't heal, we need to get very clear on what would be necessary. And what is in fact totally necessary for anybody to heal maladapted, unhealthy behavior at the level of hurting self or others profoundly, such as codependency, relationship addiction, any addiction in fact, or abuse including self-abuse, which we've all been involved in this community. Absolutely. This is the answer. Internally, find within the subconscious the trauma content and painful belief systems, damage programming that is responsible for these behaviours, and release it. Create space inside and bring in something much more loving, safe and healthy to reprogram it. Then the behaviour will automatically shift. That's the answer, point blank. And people can be in cognitive therapy for this kind of stuff for decades, literally, and even know all about where it originates from. Yet when a trigger goes off, they find themselves right back in the destructive and painful reaction to the wounds that still exist inside them on autopilot. It's like an emotional runaway train, regardless of what they logically know. Trauma at this level is not healed through the mind. It can only be addressed and healed deep within the being with body work, which means meeting those inner wounds, being with them, holding them, and processing them through to completion. And the same applies for everyone's significant inner wounds and defense mechanisms, including our own. This excellent comment from a community member really captures this truth, and this is what it is. This is our, I do need this, I can barely read it, although this is bigger font, this one. This is our nature to struggle with the truth that a narcissist doesn't have enough self-awareness and therefore self-confidence to engage in any work to change themselves. Everyone who was healed has identified a need to make personal changes and has sought therapeutic ways to work on themselves and change. This is the fundamental difference between me and my ex. I will spend the rest of my life changing myself. He will spend the rest of his life changing his narcissistic source. Wow, I couldn't have said that better. I really couldn't. And what that means, of course, means mining narcissistic supply in order to self-avoid his disowned, intensely damaged self. And knowing what I know about energy healing, I do know it is possible in theory for some narcissists to energetically claim and clear wounds and reconnect back to the source of well-being to replace these wounds. If any superconscious, if any soul still existed within the narcissistic personality. And it would be excruciating and grueling and incredibly painful, but I do believe it could be done. However, here is the massive sticking point. The narcissist is addicted to narcissistic supply, worse than a heroin addict is addicted to heroin. And the narcissist literally feels like he or she would disappear into oblivion if not getting an energy supply, attention from the outside. This is because the narcissist has killed off his or her connection to being an energy source for self, having a true self, which doesn't exist anymore. So what I've observed is that it is only narcissists in deep narcissistic injury who will dedicate any time to inner healing. The reason is because when life kicks that hard, the ego is temporarily too injured to operate. It's disengaged momentarily, which means all that is left is true self. And that's when narcissists, even if it's intensely painful, will be humble momentarily. However, the narcissist brain has been established and hardwired onto obtaining narcissistic supply for most of their life, if not all of their life. So therefore, as soon as a therapist or anybody else grants the narcissist enough attention, which is narcissistic supply, for the false self to reinstate itself again, those brain pathways start firing again. And the narcissist's humility is incredibly short-lived. It's gone. So he or she is back to the grandiose, entitled, conscienceless version of hunting narcissistic supply again. And on the story goes. Okay, so enough about narcissists. Like I always do, let's bring it back to our power-centered self, and let's get back to us. And the most important thing for us is an acceptance of the truth. So please, if you are not yet sure if you're with a narcissist or not, I'd like you to go to my article, which is Are You With a Narcissist? And the link is provided below this video because it's very comprehensive. There's a lot of very straight information in there for you, and it's going to help you get clear. And also what's very necessary for us is the full dedication to the healing of our inner traumas to rise up and out of the cycles of abuse and narcissistic people. And as this Facebook member wrote, and I'll share this one with you, and I love this. So the moment you truly know the answer to this question, can a narcissist be cured? That's when healing process starts. We can tell you no a million times, but once you believe this, that it can't be done, deep down in your heart, you will be set free. That moment happened for me because of you, Mel. Forever grateful. And oh, you know, I'm so grateful too that there is so many of us on this incredible journey of healing and thriving and transforming humanity together, one person at a time, which of course is the only place where our power is ourselves. And I'd like to send out a special thank you to those community members for your Facebook contributions to this show. So I hope this has helped. So everyone, keep healing, keep smiling, and keep thriving, because there is nothing else to do. Until the next show, lots of love. Bye-bye.